Well, what do you know? It's that time of the week again, because it's not Monday, it's not Tuesday, it's not Thursday, Wednesday. What is it?
It's Friday, clearly, because calendars and clocks and shit. And obviously today we have TLF, and we're going to be talking about range in dungeons.
Because it has been, I don't know, man, almost 2 months since our last one, and we've seen a couple of specs rise to the occasion. Some maintain their position, and some sadly maintain
some other positions. It wasn't that much change in how everything is going to be set up, but there are a couple of interesting things. And speaking of interesting things and change, if you want to change what kind of player you are to become better, to understand how the game works in raids and dungeons, then you need the Warcraft Logs companion app.
Why?
Which you can use in game as well as an overlay. You don't need to use it outside, and it helps you log your combats, yours, and check rankings for your character, for your guild. And let me tell you a story, man, because by using the Warcraft Logs while we were raiding in the Mythic Sepulchre, I actually got multiple parses over 90, but what was cool is that I actually got an 100 percentile.
Get them out of here.
It since dropped a little bit because more people cleared it, but at the time I was very happy. It's still over 90 now, but that's fine, because essentially as you're fighting, and as I was fighting through that boss fight, I kept looking at how many casts I had, how much uptime I had on my buffs, where did I drop a couple of things, and you can do all of this and a lot more with the Warcraft Logs app, which I highly would recommend, because he's using it and you should be using it too.
He's using it
use it and get better performance if you want some bigger numbers.
Yeah, it's in the game app, so you don't have to like go through browsers and stuff. It's really handy, and it's one of the best ways you can improve. Flame got fucking legendary parses by using it, so
legendary.
You can be legendary too. Thank you, Warcraft Logs, for sponsoring the video. And now for the final presentation. We started off with Affliction Warlock, because Affliction Warlock has been among the
Jesus Christ.
It's D tier, guys.
Unfortunately, Affliction Warlock didn't receive many changes since the last year that we got. So it's still D tier. It's clearing 24s and 25s right now, so you can still do over 20s. You might struggle a little bit more than with Destros and Demos. And the fact of the matter is that the majority of the Warlock players are playing Destro. And I think there was a statistic, I don't know if it's still accurate, but half of the range DPSers in Mythic Plus in the world right now are Destro Warlocks.
Well, what a surprise! So why? I wonder why.
The pool of players that are playing Affliction is considerably smaller, so you have fewer top-end Warlocks playing the spec as well. So likely it's still going to retain its spot into D tier. Sucks, but you can still do over 20s and get your 3k.
Yeah, it's not the smoothest spec to play, granted, not the most complicated, but definitely requires a lot more than the other two specs, especially Destro, so it's kind of a no-brainer. You need that efficiency, that time to get through in a big key, fast, you want to do it. Affliction is just not there. Moving along to one of the specs that has risen from its former position, Arcane Mages. And I know you've been playing on the stream some Arcane Mage.
Still playing it, still. I am loving Arcane so much. Dude, it's so
can you say it's one the most complicated spec so far?
It's definitely the most complicated specs I have played so far. I don't know how Rogue is, because I kind of view Rogue as the other, let's say, complex spec.
Now, from what I saw, there's really no comparison.
Arcane has about 5 to 6 different rotations depending on the combat that you're in, legendary that you have, and all of that, and it changes with the number of targets that you have, and if you have a priority target or not. It is fun. It's a blast. You're gonna have to like get your books done, get your glasses on, get some study going, but it pumps, man. I've never seen like individual numbers so big as it is with Arcane.
And it's a beautiful sight to see, but also very good job on one of these specs that does require, it does have a higher skill ceiling, and it does require you to put in the work to get the numbers. But once you do, you can see yourself topping the meters, no problemo. And this is a pure example, as Arcane is now an A tier spec. It used to be a B tier spec, but due to the fact that people actually gave it a chance and got through, playing it to its fullest potential, it demonstrates that, there's still some specs that...
It's good, man. And it's the OG caster where mana is important. You have to manage your mana, and we don't have that at all with any other DPS in the game. So it's a nice change.
But at the other side of the spectrum, we have BM.
Not quite at the other, but it's still... okay, BM is actually not that bad. It didn't change much.
I'm not referring to the ranking here. Frankly, how much work do you put into Arcane Mage to get shit done? How much work do you put into...
Fair enough.
Shut up.
Fair enough. off. However, I'm
hunters.
still remiss to see BM hunters that trash BM that actually pull the numbers that BM can pull off. So it's still good. It's B tier still.
B tier, yeah.
It's around, okay, so if you think about B tier, think about, okay, you can play this and you're going to have fun and it's going to be nice. You're going to do high keys over 25s, 26s and so on and so forth. You're going to be just fine if you pick any of this if you want to have fun and see how the top end game is going right now. It won't clear the 30s as of now at the very least, although BM did receive a bunch of buffs in 925. I think Beast Cleave now transfers more damage. You have overall more damage, so whether or not the numbers that affected Beastmaster still keep it into B tier or not enough people are playing it and pushing with it, that we might see it a little bit higher. Right now, it's in B tier. It's doing good. It's solid. It's not top, but you know,
I mean, you can still see
fun.
BM clearing like 27s, 28s, no problemo. And especially if you have like a decent BM hunter in your group, obviously it's least punishing to play. It can perform 100% to the top of the charts depending on the group. So if you're playing a BM hunter and you're doing your 17s or 18s or 20s or even 15s, you should be absolutely Gucci, no problemo. Next on the list, you know, the chicken that did cross the street without getting hit by some sort of truck. Unfortunately, Boomkin, it's here, baby, it's here. And this is one of the specs that has been performing consistently, I would say, of this season, but it did drop from previous seasons, I would say. Not as powerful as it was before. Still a B tier. I would say like the main issue right now is just like because I don't see like big issues for Boomkins, but the fact that we have other specs that have taken the lead in 100% in terms of numbers. Well, popularity has dropped.
Yeah, it's also Boomy's doing a little bit worse than Feral and Mythic Plus keys, so that's also a factor into it. It does have some nice utility. It all has all that druid stuff, but I feel like it's being pulled back by its Shadowlands design. Again, I come back to the Starfall being a weird spender on a cooldown that you cannot spam. It's really weird. The spec performs really weird in AoE.
But it's better than BM. I mean, it's doing a little bit more higher keys. There's a couple of keys that have been higher than the BM log, so this is why it's taken the face of BM Hunter. But regardless, I mean, once again, the argument still stands. We're looking here at like the 27, 28 keys. So if you're playing a Boomkin and you were used to like being the top of the top, you're probably gonna still be that, no problemo, and you can do like the highest keys possible. If you're gonna push 30s, then maybe you might want to think on, you know, what you want to choose over there, but it's fine. Next up, another shining star. I would say like, man, this was so close to being an S tier. I mean, it's
very close. It's an A tier. It's top of the A tier. It's one of the best rage DPS specs in the game. It's obviously outshined by the destruction, which we'll get to eventually. But Demonology is doing really good. As opposed to its counterpart destruction, it actually has more than one playstyle available right now. I've done a couple of keys with my demo, and there are at least 2 legendaries that I could use that I don't have to alter my rotation in a certain way, alter my playstyle in a certain way. So that's actually fun. That's something that attracts me as a player to a spec where I know that there's some variety. Oh, I'm bored of playing this. I can play this other thing, which is really good. It pumps massive damage. Also single target, man. Cheers.
Yeah, and also you have to realize that the fact that Demo has been so consistent this season, and it's probably gonna still be in season 4 as well. It's just like a comment of time, man, because Demo was a spec that was hardly ever like noticed in previous seasons and previous expansions. So just saying, man, seeing it now doing as it does, it just brings joy to my heart. I never played Demonology, but I enjoyed the fuck out of watching it, and it does feel like
to see those 30 EMs on the ground.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. And when all of that damage goes through, it's just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Well, next up on the list, I mean, to a lot of people's surprise, it's even in the thumbnail, if you noticed, the king, the supreme leader of the charts.
Maintains its ranking position.
Yeah,
it's been challenged many a times, but it's still the champion, still holds the belt.
Yes.
And it's the Distro Warlock, which
Dude, I always wanted to ask, so I know you played a lot more than I have, at least in the Warlock department. Is it hard to achieve those goddamn numbers, or is it just pure tuning here?
Mechanically, no, it's not hard. You do have a couple of criteria that are a little bit outside of your control, because a lot of that high ramping damage comes with a lot of rains of fire being stacked up one on top of each other. So if there's too much hectic movement, you have to build to a point where the shard generation is so high that you don't have time to cast anything except Rain of Fire. That's when things start to explode. But up until that point, that's where, you know, that the most important part. The longer you take to get to that point, the smaller your damage will be. So maybe that is the skill cap, trying to maximize the shard generation as much as possible, and then get to a point where you can just back-to-back slam those rains of fire, which at that point it just becomes a one-button spec. Hence the memes.
That was about to ask, because I know like the rotation and mechanically it doesn't seem too complicated to achieve all of that. Yes, sure, you are dependent on, you know, how the packs are pulled and having a awesome tank. But I'm saying like these distro locks that are doing these 30s. Are we seeing 31s with distro? I think so, right?
I think so. Yeah, we're doing 31s last
but
week.
These are like solid teams, right? And there's no situation there where you'll have the tank not actually keeping the pulls together or whatever. But again, just talking to the general audience here, like who are not necessarily pushing these high keys. If you play a distro lock, well, it's no.
Yeah, it's kind of like how Fire Mage was in the first season, right? With a good tank or maybe a pre-made that the tank knows and the group knows how you play. You kind of have to play around your distro warlock. There's no argument. It is what it is. It does at least double the damage of anybody else in the party. And if you want to have that, then you have to play a little bit around. Have some CC, have some kicks, let the distro just slam back-to-back rains of fire, because once the Immortal is off, Infernal is on cooldown.
Immortal, see some Diablo, something there.
But once that's on cooldown, then it's your time to shine, so it's all good.
Yeah. Next up, another spec that has been doing really good.
Solid.
Like I would say throughout the expansion, we mentioned this, and we both love Elemental Shaman to the death.
Respectable spec.
It's very respectable. I mean, people would say that, man, it's a B tier, it's not that good. No, we're looking once again at 27 and 28 keys.
I think that's better than Boomy.
Right. So it's even better than Boomy, actually. One of these specs that I would say it's not like the easiest ones to pull off. Definitely not as complicated as Arcane, but once mastered right, it can deliver tons of damage, both single target and AoE. Plus, you have to remember the Shaman utility as well. I mean, I don't remember if Shadowlands ever had an Elemental Shaman in S tier in dungeons, but it wasn't on a C or D tier either.
It was always above average. It was always really good.
I think it was A tier sometimes.
An amazing kit, most likely. It has an amazing kit. It does bring the Bloodlust. If your healer is like a Holy Priest and something like that, then you're not using any sort of Bloodlust or Survival Hunters. It does have the Elemental, which is good every now and again to help your tank drop stacks or to let it kite or anything like that. It's a solid spec. Not a lot of people are playing it these days, but then again, it's everybody's being eaten up by the destruction.
I know, and there's also a lot of resto shamans going around, but one contender to the throne on this ranking, Fire Mage, who previously was in A tier, I believe, or even B tier. It was in A tier, but
wasn't that high.
Yeah,
but
they did do so. Let's make it clear. Last time we did it, like almost 2 months ago, like the number of keys that were pushed by Fire Mage were not as high as now.
Oh no.
So now we're looking like almost closely to Destruction Warlock. It's definitely an S tier. I'm pretty sure like 30 in the 30 range over there. There's no problemo, and we're kind of expecting this. Like Fire Mage, up to this point, it's not like a scaling issue or whatever. It's just the spec right now can deliver super high octane. See what I did there? Octane. Damage to AoE and single target, and it's one of those specs that has access to its big ass cooldown really fast, and it relies on that. You can have like sort of the same argument with distros, like okay, you really need to have like a really clear and concise and tight pool of mobs in order to get it fast. This is what I was saying when I was talking about Affliction. Affliction doesn't have this like super fast, pumpy, get right back to its situation as Frost and Distro has. Frostfire and
that,
Distro
but
has.
it's also everything going around in this season with the tier set and the legendaries and all of that.
Plus the Urs, man. Plus the Urs.
Yeah, Urs are definitely good for both Distro and Fire. They're very similar specs in terms of what they can accomplish in a dungeon, where they can have crazy AoE scaling DPS. They are reliant, maybe Fire Mage is a little bit more reliant on strict tanking and positioning than Distro Warlock is, and to my personal impression, Fire Mage is a lot more difficult to play. It's mechanically it's probably the most difficult specs I have personally played.
It's so fast paced, and you have to like really get your priorities straight up and have like the sequence, like during combustion, the sequence has to be very on point in order for you to perform and get to those high numbers, right? If you fuck up like just a little step, then you can say bye-bye. It's all about the timings and making sure you make use of everything in that window super fast. It's basically be very wary of it.
It can be like a distro warlock that's punishable, because distro warlock, I mean, you can be punished by distro, but on mage, if you fuck up your rotation, it's done. On distro, it's okay, you can come back from it.
For sure. Okay, next mage spec over here.
Former king, former king,
I mean, it
champion.
was Frost was the absolute dominant king in 9.1, 9.1.5 as well. Now it's very good still. I mean, don't get it twisted. I mean, it's an A tier. I was very surprised that it actually is doing a tad bit lower keys than Arcane.
It's actually okay. So this is a point that I wanted to make.
Disclaimer, because
Arcane and Frost are very equal to each other in the sense that the players that are pushing these specs to the max are close in terms of performance and overall IO score and the level of dungeons that they're clearing. It just so happens that the #1 Arcane Mage, Cinnibun, has more. I think he has, I don't know if he has 4K, but he has more IO than any other Frost Mage currently ranked
this is why you see
in the world. But if we take Cinnibun out, then they would probably be very, very equal.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, sometimes when you look at this data and the logs, you know, some weird shit may occur, and then we kind of we're trying to reflect what we get from the data. It's not something that, okay, we want to put Arcane Mage there because we love Arcane Mage. No, but if the data is being shown like that, and this is because like Cinnibun is really bumping it up, then that's what you're gonna see.
He's not human, man.
I know, man. I know. But again, we are making these rankings based on the highest keys made and logged by these specs, right? So this is the whole gist of the situation here. Next up on the list, Marksmanship Hunter, a former king, I would say, but who hasn't like dropped significantly. I think it's like in front of the B tier, almost A tier in terms of like highest keys made. Consistent spec all around. It can deliver whatever you need to deliver. If you want to like destroy big packs of mobs, you can do it. Obviously not as efficient and as bursty as a Destro Lock or a Fire Mage, but still can get the job done, no problemo.
It does really good. Think about B tier and with Marksman in front of it as your not necessarily average spec, but as in the spec that you can take anywhere and do everything that you want. It's a step behind the specs that are going to be pushing, like, okay, I'm going to be king this season, I'm going to show everybody that I have the biggest IO. But that's Marksman is still solid. It does really well. I mean, we play with our Marksmans and Legos doing massive damage.
There's also one other thing here, because it's, you know, it's in the hunter's class situation. We also have to take into account that survival is the top melee DPS in keys, and you're going to probably see a lot of former Marksman mains playing a lot more survival.
Pretty much.
The logs that you see for survival are for marksman are not as many as they were in the past. So this is another factor that kind of like gets it, I would say, lower than A tier in the sense that, okay, previously it was
you can think of the #1 player in M+ right now ranked on logs is Gingy as of recording this video. And Gingy is like a main hunter, and he played a lot of marksman up until this season, and survival as well, and obviously he played a lot of stuff, but he is one of the best hunters in the world as a survival. If let's say survival gets nerfed into the ground, likely we could see marksman maybe
bump it up for sure,
bump it to 80 or something like that.
Yeah, because we'll have a lot more logs probably at higher keys. That's all it is. Last on the list, again, not least for anything. Again, very surprised that Shadow Priest actually has been maintaining its position into the higher number of keys. Like we're looking at 26, 27, something like that. And it's always the argument with Shadow that, you know, it's a beautiful spec. It does require you to have some build up over there and maintenance. Wouldn't compare it to Affliction in that sense, but in order to have your highest performance possible, there's a lot of stuff to do, which Destro, Fire, Frost can do, like at least at the same level, but with very, very very much easier time and much more efficient. This is why Shadow, but again, we're looking at Shadow Priest that is being placed into the beta. I think it's doing better than Boomkin.
It's around the middle, yeah, between Boomy and Elemental. It's around there, like those three specs are more or less sometimes interchangeable. Yeah. Shadow Priest has the Priest utility, which is a little bit outshined by the fact that Holy Priest is a much better Priest spec when you want to take it into high keys. However, for your regular 20s and 25s and all that, and if you want to push even above 25s, you can definitely play Shadow. It does, you will feel a difference if you've played Destro or Fire or anything like that.
Oh yeah.
There is a difference in numbers, and that's a little bit of a shame. However, every spec in B tier is fun and can push, and I would, while looking at this tier sets, Affliction notwithstanding, the B tier specs and lower should receive some smaller buffs. Like I would definitely see stuff like 5% damage here or there, a little bit more uptime on X and Y, and that could maintain them a little bit more viable compared to like the fucking pinnacle of range goodness.
We can have a talk about who needs tuning in the plus department and who needs tuning in the minus department, but I think one of the specs that definitely we need some love would be Affliction, because it has been standing like at the bottom of all of the list for quite some time now. And I'm not saying to make all specs equal. I'm just saying when you have like a big gap between this, so there's basically no C tier, you can see how bad it is, right?
Try very hard not to put Affliction so low, but there's a big difference between the top Affliction players and the top BM Hunter players.
Oh, for sure. But and also, again, guys, it's not that it's like we're talking about Affliction clearing in time with high damage, like 25s, 24s, 25s, 26 even. So it's not like a broken spec that could not perform. But when you look at the other numbers, you can definitely see a huge ass difference. But overall, the picture is quite decent. Apart from Affliction, we can see like very similar performances throughout all of the tiers. I would say, like, you know, Destro and Fire pretty much on the same ground. Same thing for, you know, Demonology, Arcane, Frost, and again with all of the B tier there. I mean, it's not like
it's a fun time to play range if you're not an Affliction world.
That's basically, we love Affliction. We hopefully some love is gonna get there. But you know who always gets love? Our Patreons, baby. Yes. Thank you so much, guys, for supporting the content that we do.
Helps
and thank you, Warcraft Vlogs, for sponsoring the videos. Remember, guys, you can basically strive to improve and check the performance you do in raids or dungeons directly within the game with the Warcraft
Vlogs app. Become a better player.
Yes, just use it. We use it. Everybody who wants to get a little bit better uses it. Obviously, there's a lot more things to get better, but this is one really great, I would say, data tool to get you at least some important information on how you do.
And we recommend.
Yes, and thank you for watching the video up until this point. Have a great weekend. The best weekend. It cannot be a better weekend than this.
The best. No, after this, we'll stop.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.